It's going live. Acknowledge Vince,
Like, is it
acknowledge.
really
Okay, I
a
think we're
Babylon
live.
5 podcast if we never get
Acknowledge
asked about
Vince,
it? Like, is it
acknowledge.
really
Okay,
a
I think we're
Babylon
live. Is it really a Babylon 5 podcast? I've literally never watched a
It
single
has
episode of
episodes? I thought
Babylon
it was
5.
just a series of manga.
I thought it was just fever dreams that the very lucky got during particularly cold winters. But yeah, hello everyone. We're going to get started with the official recording of the Tapcaf Transmissions podcast
Wow, the
in just a
official
moment.
recording.
The official recording. I do a little sleazy
Well, I thought that
unofficial
just meant that
after this.
mine was the unofficial one.
That does make sense as
So
well.
now that we got that sorted out.
Yeah. So for those who are new here, we're recording an episode basically of our podcast, Tapcaf Transmissions. So we won't be answering questions or anything during the recording itself, but by the end of the episode, usually we have a few moments where you can get some thoughts in. We'll usually answer a few questions. Also, if you do donate, although I do appreciate it very much, I won't be able to address your donation in the chat. So, anything you'd want to add on that before we get started, Corey?
Yeah, just that Eck doesn't actually appreciate the donations. So, yeah.
It's pretty fucking rude, but okay. All right, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tapcaf Transmissions. My name is Justin, joined as always by my good friend Corey.
Wow.
Good friend, I would say, after many episodes of Tapcaf. You were saying the other day that you think that we're starting
It's
to
just
sound
sometimes
similar.
I'll listen to streams that we've done or when I'm editing the podcast, and especially at the start, if there's like short sentences that happen, then I can't really tell which of us is talking. Or if like we're yelling at Charlie at the same time in gaming streams, then we usually say the exact same thing at the same time. So it checks out.
All right, so today we're talking about a very unique Star Wars book, I, Jedi, which is sort of like a addendum to the Jedi Academy trilogy, but also with lots of other stuff thrown in. How would you describe it, Corey?
Parts of it feel like it's Michael Stackpole saying like, and here's all the reasons you're wrong, Kevin J. Anderson. But
yeah. Kind of an interesting book too, because it was released much, much later than the Jedi Academy trilogy. What year was that released? Was it 96?
I don't know.
94 maybe? I'm just going to check real quick. That's definitely... Yeah, 94. And this I, Jedi was released in 98. After most of the Bantam era was finished, it was released only a few months, actually, before the Thrawn duology, which... Yeah, Vector Prime as well. But also the Thrawn duology, which is basically like the unofficial end... Well, the official end, really, of the Bantam era. So it's got lots of... kind of other plot threads throughout, or like references to other stuff that they just couldn't like fit into the Bantam, to the Jedi Academy trilogy. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's kind of something that happens again in NJO, where it's Michael Stackpole just referencing a lot of stuff that Kevin J. Anderson did in the Jedi Academy trilogy, where when we get to Dark Tide, then it's pretty much just the same characters from the Jedi Academy trilogy, the same planets, all doing different stuff by Michael Stackpole again. So,
yeah, which is fun because I think he makes very like cozy books.
why do you always? Why is it always cozy
like
with you? You just keep going back to cozy.
Know. It's like it is like It's kind of like they're fun books, but I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because usually before we get into the actual book discussion, we do like to do a brief checkup. We like to say our hellos, talk about, anything that's going on. So is there anything you want to plug or anything you're excited for or just anything exciting that you want to talk about before?
Not particularly. We do have a new release of Thrawn's Revenge coming out on Monday. That's the Empire at War mod that I run. And we've got a bunch of reworks coming out in that. So if you play Empire at War and you want to check that out, that'll be coming out May 4th, Star Wars Day. Do you have any big Star Wars Day plans, Eck?
No, I know that's when the finale of
true.
Clone Wars is coming out, so I'm excited for that. They said they're having like this weird online Star Wars celebration as well, which kind of made me wonder like, is there going to be an actual Star Wars celebration? I'm kind of feeling like even if there is,
No,
I
there's
might just
definitely
not
there's no way.
go.
Like this is
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
seems to come up a lot with people who are just clinging to hope. It's not happening. There's no way.
Hmm. Yeah. I've been accepting that since like March, but there are you're right. There are some people who are very, very like kind of in denial about the fact that like nobody, even if there was like almost no possibility of there being a COVID spread, people are just too on edge, I think,
Well,
to
you
want to
have
get
to
together
kind
like
of
that.
plan the conventions a
And
while
there
in
is threat of.
advance, and that it was
Mhm.
what, like only 3 months out now. That would have been.
Yeah. Well, it's 3 months out from now, yeah, from May, because it was mid-August, so I think it was mid-August, sometime in August. So yeah, we're
Yeah,
getting about 3 months away. Shit's still gonna be on
yeah.
fire by then, probably.
Especially if states
But I
reopen.
was kind of disappointed because I think it was gonna be my first Star Wars
Well, next year can
celebration.
be your first
So
Star Wars celebration. And since we're the only Star Wars
yeah,
podcast in existence, then we'll probably be invited to do a panel.
yes,
As long as we don't spend all
absolutely.
episode talking about the various things that Corran Horn wants to have sex with, which we are going to do. It's unavoidable.
Yeah. Um, I tweeted about being the only Star Wars podcast. I guaranteed somebody took that, and I was like legitimately a little pissed.
Well, who would be pissed about that? Because there's no other Star Wars podcast to be annoyed about it.
That's true. That's true.
That's
Wannabe Star
true.
Wars podcast, I guess. But besides that, also a new Clone Wars episode tonight, which I'm very excited for. Um, and I'm also running a fundraiser, which I will take a second to plug. I'm running a fundraiser for victims of the shooting in Nova Scotia. So if you guys want to donate to that, you can feel free. It's been a really dark like month in this province. Besides for the COVID thing, we had this shooting, and then did you hear about the
Yeah.
helicopter crash today? And that was like stationed out of
Mm.
Shearwater in Dartmouth. So very, very dark times. But let's move on to something a little bit more, a little bit less dark. But before we do we? I don't know if we even officially decided what we want to do next. I suggested maybe the classic Han Solo adventures would be an
Yeah,
interesting
we talked
break
about we
from the
talked
post
about that. We
Endor
talked
stuff.
about Ice Sarge Revenge. Do you want to just call it now for the Han Solo adventures?
Yes. So to be clear for people, there's the Han Solo Adventures, and there's the AC Crispin ones. I think we're gonna do the Brian
Yeah.
Daly ones from the '70s first, right? Yeah. So Han Solo at Star's End will be the book read next week, or sorry, the week after next episode. Um, and that should be a fun read. It's pretty short, I think, but and you did mention kind of putting them together, but I've been thinking since like they're so unique, I think we should probably try to not enjoy them
Not enjoy
and
them?
not try to just push through them. No, we should try to. I just feel like if we were putting them all in one episode,
Okay,
we
so you
might
want to
miss
do
kind of
three
uh,
individual episodes? So
three
would we
episodes.
be
Yeah,
doing that still every other week, or would you want to try to compress that a bit more because they are so short?
we could probably. I'll have to see how my schedule works out. I'm sure you will too, but we can probably just
Yeah,
do one weekly because they're all less than 200 pages, I believe, except for maybe the first one.
yeah,
So they're very very readable. Um, we were also mentioning, I think now is an interesting time to bring this up. We've been talking about taking the podcast weekly, um, and on off weeks, I guess. So we'll probably continue the bi-weekly book series, and then on off weeks, maybe we'll do a discussion of whatever's out that week. So whether it's a Clone Wars episode, probably not because we've only got two left. Whether it's a Clone Wars episode or The Mandalorian, or maybe a movie rewatch or something, it could just be fun to kind of get some different content in there.
Yeah, there was actually an email that we got from Austin asking us about some of our thoughts from the Clone Wars episode. So we probably won't answer that email directly now, but we'll probably end up doing some sort of like Clone Wars recap episode, or maybe a Mandalorian rewatch. There's a lot of different media like that we can put in. And there was another email about doing potentially like an episode talking about Knights of the Old Republic. And so any kind of like game recaps or other media discussions would probably fit into those every other week. Kind of mixed in with the book discussions. But yeah.
Right. So that I was thinking about that. I guess there's a chance if we do a Clone Wars recap that might interfere with one of the Han Solo books, because so like there might be a break between this first one and the second one maybe, but we'll see.
Or alternatively, because it is ending
we'll
on Tuesday, we could do Clone Wars next week. And then week after that, then we're keeping the 2 weeks for the start of it. Gives us a bit more time. And
yep, we really should be prepared, because that's a good idea. So as of now, we'll say next Thursday, or I guess it doesn't even really need to be Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday. That's just
sometime next week.
The podcast is on Thursday. Don't ruin the brand.
We'll say
you should know this. Come on.
Okay.
Doesn't everyone call them Tapcaf Thursdays?
Sometime. They do have Tapcaf Thursdays down at the local bar in celebration of my podcast. So
thanks for inviting. No, you said
our
podcast.
I said my local bar.
We usually don't.
Podcast.
Like, chat. This is important. He said my. Anyway,
despite Corey being wrong, or maybe right, I'm not very good with memory, so you were probably right. But yeah, so we'll try to keep it to Thursday. Next week we'll do a Clone Wars recap, then we'll move on to Star's End, and then we'll see where it goes from there, I guess.
All right. Yeah. All right. So
cool.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks for this. Yeah. See, we make the same lame jokes even. Yeah. Which we could definitely do if we started doing these shorter. Because like we were talking about this kind of when we were streaming the other day, it's gonna be hard for us to like get a host midway through like NJO, for example. It's like,
all right, what was going on in this war? Can you get me up to speed?
I mean, spooky aliens who doesn't afraid of anything. Attacks the
really,
galaxy.
Alex is our Star Wars Explained is our only option for a guest throughout the entire NJO, which will take a year and a half to finish. So,
yeah. Anyway, so let's move on and talk about iJedi. We mentioned this book is really unique because it's really it's kind of funny. I remember I dated a girl in high school who was really into the Twilight series, as like a lot of girls were. And after Twilight came out, and I believe Twilight started off as Harry Potter fan fiction, which is pretty epic.
It's 50 Shades that started off after as Twilight fan fiction.
Oh, that's 50 Shades?
I don't think Twilight started as Harry Potter fan fiction. That maybe it did, but I'm pretty sure it was just 50 Shades as Twilight fan fiction.
You're probably right.
I haven't been on the Twilight fan forums for a while, but
see, I only like the pictures there, so I didn't. Anyway, so after the whole Twilight series came out, because they were books first. I think there's 4 books,
New Moon, Eclipse,
or 3 or 4.
I think Twilight, New Moon,
shut up,
Twilight Eclipse, and Twilight Red Dawn. I don't know. I think I made up the last.
Red Dawn. Those were much different books. But anyway, my point is, after the books came out, the author was going to write a new series from the perspective, instead of the girl, from the perspective of not Jacob, the other
Edward,
the vampire. Edward.
So now it just sounds like I know a lot. That's basically I know a lot about Twilight, but I was just thinking that I don't know the name of the other one. So
yeah, that's why we work well together. But basically, that would have been the iJedi of the Twilight series. Is my whole point. Because it's the same story from a different perspective.
What a pointless tangent to go on.
Well, it wasn't supposed to be that long, but you've had to fucking chime in 6 or 7 times with your
But you're trying to give context for iJedi using Twilight? This was just horrible.
That would be interesting. I just want to brag about having a girlfriend in high school.
Okay.
Because still pretty proud of that.
Well, we usually get at least one story about one of your ex-girlfriends every episode. So we're...
Listen, you were the one who said Twilight Red Dawn.
And I thought that was a fantastic joke, and I'm going to maintain that it was a joke.
It was. It was. But yeah, so this is an interesting story because it starts off a little bit before the Jedi Academy trilogy, which I completely forgot for the first 10 pages when I was reading it. There's a part where Han Solo comes in, and he's like, I'm going to Kessel. And I was like, bro, you were just there. But so yeah, a lot of it takes place concurrently with the Jedi Academy books, which of course are a trilogy. And then I'd say about like halfway through iJedi, it moves on to a story that takes place afterwards. But it really doesn't hold your hand because like if you haven't read the Jedi Academy trilogy, there's really, I'd say, a decent amount in this book that you'll be like, huh? Like Kip Duron, for example, is introduced really without any context. They mention the Sun Crusher a whole lot. Dala, for example, is name dropped. So I think we chose well by reading.
And I think it does something that I really enjoyed for it. I don't know if I'd enjoy it if it was in like every book, but there's a very clear sense that there is stuff going on outside of what the book is about, and the fact that it's first person really does help with that. But like you get Kip, Mara, a lot of people that just like come in, they're doing their own thing, they're tangentially interacting with Corran, and then they just go off and go back to whatever they're doing while Corran is focusing on his aspects of it. And I really like that element. I wouldn't mind seeing more of that.
Yeah, like Lando's in the story, but he's like he's in there, but like he doesn't do anything. Like he's just kind of, it's just like you're in for a slice of Lando's life here. And yeah, the whole kind of the whole thing about this book is it is written in first person. So just in case you guys don't know what that means, basically instead of saying Corran ogled the teenage alien, it would say I ogled the teenage alien.
And there's a fair bit of similar things, but Corran doesn't explicitly do that, does he?
Well, he comments on the boobs of a teenage Kamasi.
Right,
Which made me really uncomfortable because he was like, "Oh, looks like she just entered puberty based on her small boobs." And I was like, "Corran, what the fuck?"
Is that Reliquy?
Like, it's Reliquy's daughter, Or no? Oh yeah,
I
it would be
Reliquy was Elagos' daughter or niece. Because I always get confused with like Elenic is Elagos' uncle. So
father or uncle. I think Reliquy. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's his daughter. So, yeah, I completely forgot about that. Huh.
There you go.
How about that? Yeah. So do you want to kind of bring us in with how this book
opens? So like you're saying, there's three kind of main sections here. There's a little bit before Jedi Academy, then we kind of get Jedi Academy from Corran's perspective, and then we get the rest of like Corran's Corsac investigation. But the way the book is set up is Corran is with Rogue Squadron. He's one of the Rogue Squadron pilots. They're looking for Invidious, which is a ship that belongs to a kind of rogue Moff, Leonia Tavira, who's causing a bunch of trouble, very difficult to track. And he ends up going home to his apartment, I guess, with his wife Mirax, thinks that she's just off on a mission. Then he wakes up and he's having trouble remembering her. She's been abducted in some way. So Corran is trying to find help to find what happened to Mirax.
Yeah, because she was supposed to be off on a run. So Mirax, who's first introduced in the X-Wing novels, basically before joining Rogue Squadron, and Corran is the main character in most of the Rogues. Well, the first 4 X-Wing novels, he's really the main character. He was what was called a Corsac officer, and that's basically like a Corellian police officer. And while on Corellian, while working for Corsac, he witnesses his father die. There's lots of drama there, but he also hunted, pirates and gang members and stuff. And one of them was a man named Booster Tarek, another very famous Star Wars Legends character. Very famous. I get questions about him from my parents all the time. Almost as famous.
Yeah,
as
on my birthday, I just hear from my dad, like, "What's Booster up to?" And it's like, "Dad, he's a fictional character."
But Corran's dad arrested Booster and sent him to Kessel for, I think, half a decade. So, and Mirax, of course, is Booster's daughter. So it's kind of like a Romeo and Juliet situation with rival families and whatnot. Corran, who again is the main character in this, his dad is dead now. He's been forced to, he ran off to Rogue Squadron for a bit. And in this story, he's kind of discovering his Jedi ancestry, which we get a bit of as well.
Yeah, so he's known for a while that his grandfather was a Jedi, and he was kind of raised by the
step grandfather. It's like grandfather's buddy.
So this is pretty much him trying to figure out what elements of his past he can use, or of his heritage he should be using to find Mirax, and kind of discovering. It's a journey of self-discovery through his Jedi heritage, which is what sort of the first half of the book is about, when he's at Luke's Jedi Academy and trying to figure out how much of his Corsac training he can apply there, and trying to figure out, like, how does he relate to the Force. And then he leaves the Academy, and he ends up going, like, kind of rejecting everything that he learned at the Academy and going full Corsac. But then he starts kind of figuring out that he isn't just Corran Horn, Corsac investigator, or Kieran Halcyon, which is the name he went by when he was at the Jedi Academy, kind of named after his grandfather. And he kind of starts melding all that together to figure out who he is, and only then can he find his wife.
It is kind of interesting because most stories where characters, where they discover a Jedi lineage, or even if it's another story where they're discovering some mythical lineage like a Harry Potter or whatever, usually they just embrace it fully. But even by the end of this, Corran never fully embraces his role as solely a Jedi. I'd say towards the end, he is basically a Jedi with kind of his own streak to it, but he doesn't like you might expect him to decide at the very end to go back and train with Luke at the Jedi Praxium or go do whatever else. But really, he's like, no, I'm just going to continue kind of to do my own thing and to help out wherever I can. And one thing that you guys have to remember is that this book was written before The Phantom Menace even came out. So the idea of what a Jedi was much, much different. And in this story especially, but also in the X-Wing novels, we learn about Corellian Jedi, and there are different sects of Jedi. And Corellian Jedi, for example, they typically didn't really leave the Corellian system very much. Corran's grandfather, for example, worked really closely with Corran's biological grandfather, the Jedi, worked very closely with Corran's step-grandfather, who was a Corsac agent. So definitely much different than what we end up seeing in the prequels. And yeah, I guess that's something you kind of got to keep in your mind when you read this.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of the Bantam era books, and even a bit into Del Rey, what they usually did with the Jedi is kind of just talk about how it was like all the records were destroyed by the Empire, and it's all shrouded in mystery and everything, because like literally no one knew because the prequels hadn't come out yet. Even NJO, which was coming out alongside the prequels, like episode 1 came out around the same time that the first NJO books come out, and by the time Attack of the Clones came out, the series was just finishing, and none of the authors knew what was going on there. So there was a lot of like the Jedi trying to figure out what the old Jedi Order was, because the authors were still trying to figure out what the old Jedi Order was.
Right, because you asked Troy Denning about that, right, on Twitter? And what did he say? You basically asked what he knew about, was it Revenge of the Sith?
I was asking, because I'm doing my own just reread of NJO while isolating, and there's a lot of stuff that kind of parallels with some of the Jedi's role in the Clone Wars. So I was wondering, since they were coming out around the same time, if this was something that the authors had planned or if it was just kind of a coincidence. And so I tweeted at Troy Denning, who is an author who wrote one of the books in NJO, Star by Star, as well as a lot of the books that take place after the New Jedi Order or Yuuzhan Vong War. And what he said was that he's 100% confident that at the time, the only information that he at least had, and presumably the other authors, was what was publicly available. So anything that they were planning was just based on Phantom Menace at that point.
Yeah, I believe that too, because after the prequels did fully release, you get like the Swarm War, and they very heavily addressed stuff like that. Like there was no other book that talked about Luke's mother. Well, there was that. We do get some stuff about that later on, but Luke's real mother is only really mentioned in the Swarm War and beyond. And it's like when they had that book, that's like, okay, all this shit's finally been unlocked, and there's like a whole plot about Luke literally. I think that's Swarm War, right? When Luke literally unlocks the holograms and stuff from R2D2. So yeah, so this is even more dramatic than that, because not only was there no episode 2 or episode 3, but we haven't even seen anything of the prequel era Jedi. And we see stuff like the timeline is still very messed up. Like Corran's said to be born after the Clone Wars, which doesn't make sense for his age.
No, it doesn't.
Because he's a few years older than Luke.
Version of the Clone Wars and then the Jedi Purge is very spread out at this point. Because they mention how like the timeline doesn't match up for Corran, his dad, and his grandfather, and it doesn't match up for the Jensari, which it was like Corran's dad was killed in the fight with the Jensari, or with Nico Tiris, who you
mean his grandfather?
So Nija Halcyon was killed while killing Nico Tiris, at which point the leader of the Jensari in this book was pregnant with a son, and that was supposed to be like after the Clone Wars, I think is how they describe it. But she also mentions that by that point, by the time that everyone was getting purged, her son had been like 10 years old or something. So it basically sets everything back at least a decade or two and spreads it out more.
Right, because I think the book has Corran's dad is very young when his grandfather's killed, which is supposed to be after Endor,
which means that he's at most like 10 years old, or he's basically having Corran when he's born. Corran's birthday makes more sense to be when his dad's birthday ends up being.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, because it's a bit messed up with like the age of like it's always been a bit messed up, so it doesn't really bother me. It's just the way it is. Even there's no way Obi-Wan and Aunt Beru aged that much in 18 years. Did you see Aunt Beru in episode 3? Come on, man. But so it starts off, as we said, with Corran. Corran's missing his girl. She's supposed to be off on a mission because she's a smuggler. And there's this big plot about Mirax is really hounding him to have some kids. Like really, really like on him to have some kids. He keeps kind of pushing it off. He's not sure at the beginning anyway. But then she doesn't come back. And he feels kind of guilty because he was like, okay, well, I won't. If she'd
been pregnant, she never would have been kidnapped.
Basically he's like, okay, once this deal with the pirate with the Invids is over, because he's also hunting the Invids as part of Rogue Squadron. Once that's been taken care of, then we'll make a decision on the child. So he feels like she's working for the New Republic government as well, kind of undercover. He feels like it's his fault that she's kind of been putting herself out there. And we have him going to he goes and sees Tycho and others within the New Republic government, basically trying to get information about where she was, and no one's really able.
But crucially, before he goes to talk to Tycho or to Wedge, We get a little bit more about the child debate with him and Mirax, and a key figure really plays into this. MVP of the X-Wing books, Oral, his wingmate, Agon. He was basically, if you've watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it just kind of reads like if Corran is Jake Peralta and Mirax is Amy, then Oral is basically just Charles trying to make them. We need more little Corrans in the world.
So like, except Charles, but like, if Charles was like smashing on the regular, because Oral's smooth. Like Oral's like Oral hooked them up basically,
and so did Charles.
So. I'm not as familiar with the Brooklyn Nine-Nine expanded universe.
Well, on my other podcast, it's all we talk about.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine Minute, each episode dedicated to a minute of Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah, the original Star Wars Explained channel and I just got into a lot of heat over that.
But it's kind of funny how Corran goes to see Tycho, and he talks about this connection he feels with Mirax, and he's like, "Do you feel that with Winter?" And Tycho's like, "Well, I feel something when we're together, but not like that."
Fucking Akbar.
You want to know why? It's because Akbar searched for love. Akbar is the one laying the eggs, like.
And this is something that we're going to keep tracking as we do the podcast, because there's a definite story here that people need to know. We did get an email that mentioned this from Justin as well, and something that comes up in the NJO when Akbar is dying is when Luke goes to meet them, who's together? Who's been looking after Akbar in his old age?
Yep.
Winter. And what do we think looking after means?
Looking after something.
The people need to know. Something fishy's going on here.
Yeah. It's like if Akbar was in the room, which he could have been, during that whole Tycho Selku thing, when Tycho's like, "Yeah, I don't feel that connection," Akbar's just like pulling on his collar, like, "Don't ask me."
It's a threesome.
Whereas closing his eyes, he's like, "I know where she is right now."
See, if this book had been different, like originally this was pitched as it's Tycho looking for Winter, but Michael Stackpole thought, like most people, were like, "Oh, she's just with Akbar," so he had to switch it to being about Corran, and that's when he added all the Jedi stuff. So we almost got a very different book.
Speaking of, this is kind of tangentially related.
I mean, we're already
the forward. No, the forward for this book. Did you read it? And like the thanks, the dedication, is it maybe? No, it is the acknowledgements. Stackpole talks about how, well, for one, he says thanks to Kevin J. Anderson for providing the background for half this book, just the background. But then he says very special thanks to Timothy Zahn, who graciously vetted all the pages that featured his characters, offered suggestions that made parts of the novel better, and worked tirelessly to meld the two new Star Wars novels with his book, the two new Star Wars novels being the Thrawn duology. So we see not only noted revisionist Michael Stackpole jumping in here, but also even more noted revisionist Timothy Zahn, who and if you notice, this is like the beginning of him starting to right the wrong of the Lando Mara love scene thing. Because it establishes in this book that they're just working together. Whereas
Corellian trilogy,
I think it's Children of the Jedi.
Because Corellian trilogy is when Lando is getting married. It's much later. But
yes, but it's like in the next one, Luke calls and they're together. So
getting dressed or something.
She's like, yeah, basically they're deep under covers. But and you do see you definitely see a lot of Timothy Zahn in this, because I think this has got to be the first mention of George Cardass, right?
Not I don't think it's the first mention of him, but because
he's not actually mentioned in the Thrawn trilogy, right?
Wait.
And Outbound Flight came out much later.
Is he mentioned in the Thrawn trilogy as like the person that Card inherited his organization from? Because I know that's what it turned into later, at
Maybe.
least, but I don't know
right
if he
now.
was always mentioned as that.
Let me just see. I'm kind of curious now. Let me just check.
Because I don't think
Appearances, Outbound Flight, Scoundrels, Choices of One, I, Jedi, Spectre of the Past, Vision of the Future. No, so he's not mentioned in any of the Thrawn trilogy books. So this would have been, I think, his first appearance is listed as Spectre of the Past. So I think this technically would have been the first time he was mentioned.
Noted Thrawn best friend, George Cardass.
Yes.
The OG Gilad Pelion / Eli Vanto.
Yes. Also, I feel like if Timothy Zahn hadn't been involved, we wouldn't have got Elagos Akla.
Yeah, probably not, because the whole Kamasi thing, and the fact that there was the Kamasi remnant in the first place. So it's some good setup.
Yeah, when we get direct reference to like the firebombing and stuff. Yeah, definitely like to see them working together like that.
Which is kind of a hint of what's to come with NGO.
Of course, it does end up like...
Yes. There really wasn't that much.
And it does kind of... No. But we do start to see a little bit of authors kind of stepping on each other's toes. Not that that's anything new, but like, you know, we get that with a lot with the Thrawn duology as well, and like Dark Empire and stuff. So just prepare yourselves. But I guess the first real third, or even the first half of this book, is really so Corran decides that he needs to track Mirax down, and the best way to do this is to spend like 10 weeks at Luke's Jedi Praxium, which Luke is also just founding. I feel like Corran takes a very like lackadaisical like approach to tracking his wife down.
Well, he goes into there's two meetings that he kind of barges in on. The first is with Tycho and Aaron Kraken, and Kraken kind of knows something about where the where Mirax is, or at least where Tavira is, and just won't tell him. So then Corran decides, I'm going to go to like the ruling council, the chief of state, to try to get approval for me to find out this information. And he barges in on a meeting between Wedge and Han, as Han's about to like head off to his Kessel adventures from Jedi Academy, which you alluded to earlier. But everyone's like, no, come on. So he eventually just decides, okay, I'm going to go undercover at Luke's Jedi Academy, learn about the Force, and then maybe I can find her.
Yeah, because he kind of wants to focus on this brief link. I guess he wants, because right before she kind of goes MIA, she kind of puts out like a call for help, kind of. And yeah, he feels like he can maybe use that connection to really track her down.
Luke, when he's talking to Luke initially before they head off to the academy, Luke does his little knock on your mind thing to see what happens, and he describes it as like a wound in the Force almost, or a psychic wound for him, but it kind of feels to me like the whole wound in the Force thing from KOTOR 2 on a smaller scale.
I just want to say Luke doesn't give a fuck about whether he finds Mirax or not at this point. You know, it's like Wedge or somebody suggests it, and Luke's like, yeah, come to the
Luke in this book academy. Is just terrible at literally everything.
Yeah. Luke's described, like, the way Luke is portrayed is honestly like the kid at school who like thinks he's good at like soccer or something. So everyone just like, it's like, yeah, man, you're great at it. But then it's just like a real weight on you, and it's just
he's like a more positive version of the "there's no difference between good things and bad, you imbecile, you absolute fucking moron" meme.
Yeah,
it's like they go to the Jedi Academy, and Exar Kun. We just talked about this for 3 months, so we won't probably get too deep into it. But like Exar Kun is messing everything up, and Corran's like, "Do you think we should do something about that?" It's like, what do you mean, do something about what?
Yeah, because Luke. Okay, so first of all, Luke doesn't realize that Exar Kun's doing anything. He's just a little mad. Like, he's just really advancing the Force and not having a great time. And Corran's like, I don't know. And then later, Gantoris literally explodes, and Luke's like, "Watch out for the dark side." He was probably just really mad when he exploded. Corran's like, "People probably shouldn't be exploding."
There's there's like 3 or 4 conversations that Corran has with Luke where he's just like walking Luke through the most basic, just logic. Like,
I know.
Well, where did he learn to get a lightsaber? Like, you and Cam have lightsabers. Like, no, you know where those came.
Yes, we brought them.
So, did you teach him how to make a lightsaber? No. Did I teach him how to make a lightsaber? No. Where'd he get a lightsaber? He has a lightsaber. Like, no, Luke. Something horrible is going on.
Yeah, like, I mean, Luke was pretty terrible about it all in the Jedi Academy trilogy, but this just takes it to a whole nother level. It's like, after, like, Gantoris fights Luke, Luke's just like, he sure is angry, and Kip's like,
hey, make sure he gets that lightsaber back.
And the other thing about Luke, too, is he's got all these students at the Academy. He focuses on one person at any given time. Like, when Gantoris is there, basically Kip talks about how, like, Luke is just teaching Gantoris one-on-one, and then Cam Solusar is basically teaching everyone else. Same thing when Mara shows up. Yeah. Same thing when Kip shows up. So it's like, not only is Luke a shitty teacher, but, like,
he's playing favorites, like, and they always explode.
He doesn't treat all the students. Yeah. We also see Brackus in, which is, I completely forgot that he was in this book. That was kind of a nice surprise.
Brackus ends up being this, he goes to the dark side as well. And you get some hints at that in this, but he's kind of like the big bad in the Young Jedi Knights trilogy, or a subsection of the Young Jedi Knights stuff, where he's running a thing called the Shadow Academy, where in the space of Shadow 6 months he trains up about 3 trillion Dark Jedi is what it seemed like.
Yeah, and kidnaps like Jaina and Jason and shit. Yeah. Fun books. I'm excited to read those. But yeah, so he was already, I forget, is Cam Solusar one of the Jedi in the is he in the Jedi Academy? Because there's 3 Jedi, right, who aren't mentioned. One is Kieran or Corran, and then the other
I believe
is Brackus.
Cam is mentioned because he's always helping Luke run it, and it was kind of like one of the Dark Empire tie-ins. So I think he was mentioned.
Right. Oh yeah.
It's like him, Corran T, Dorsk 81, Gantoris, Tion were all mentioned.
I'm trying to remember who's the other one. I'm just looking up now.
Kyle.
There was Streen. Madarin?
He's
the
one with like the hammerhead sort of, or not hammerhead, but he's got a giant fin on his head.
Right. So I guess he would have been the other one that wasn't name dropped besides Kyle Katarn, I guess. Because Kyle Katarn, he is part of the first class, technically.
He's in around this time. I think he's technically part of it, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Kind of weird because a lot of people are kind of coming and going.
Luke doesn't notice except for, like, Gantoris is there for, I mean, they're probably only there for, what, a month or 2 that this section of the book takes place over. Gantoris explodes pretty quickly. Kip is there for a week.
They're there for 10 weeks. About, I would guess. Well, the 10 weeks between, they say it's 10 weeks between Mirax getting captured and when he's on the errant venture. So probably like 8 weeks, like 2 months.
So,
I would say.
And a good part of that is like after Kip is gone. So like Mara gets there, she gets her fighter stolen, she's not happy, she leaves, but she also comes back because there's like there's 2 main events in Exar Kun's attack where I just remember the Exar Kun joke. Kun.
Exar Kun. I listened to the audiobook for this one.
It was what? You cut out of it.
It was the same guy, the same narrator. For this audiobook, for the iJedi audiobook, which is still somehow 3.5 hours long and actually not a bad abridgment at all. It's so for those who don't know, if you listen to the audiobooks, which were made in the 90s, you'll hear lots of interesting stuff. And when he says Exar Kun, he says Exar Kun. Very long and proud.
And if you listen to one of the books later done by the same guy, he says Exar Kun like we do, but he just sounds really dejected while he's doing it because he got talked to.
Exar Kun.
But yeah, so there's two main attacks that happen on, or I guess sort of three that happen on Luke, because Kip is under Exar Kun's influence when Gantoris dies, because there always needs to be two, and he kind of blasts Corran out of the way, and Luke's like, "What did you say to him to provoke this? Like, why are you come on, man!" And then so Kip leaves, comes back, and just blasts Luke out into oblivion. It's like, "What did you say to provoke this, Luke?"
Yeah, I just have bratty Luke as a note. Did you like the extra? Because there's a lot more. Somehow, despite this being one book, like they managed to fit a lot more like training and stuff like in there. I guess it's because all of the kind of non-essential stuff that most of the Jedi Academy trilogy is cut out, and I think that really, really helps because we get a lot more actual training. And one thing I didn't realize, I forgot that Corran, he can with a mighty effort, because Corran's whole thing is he can't really do telekinesis. And I thought he couldn't do telekinesis at all, but in one occasion in this book, he opens a latch on somebody's luggage. But what he can do also is he can kind of absorb energy and then use telekinesis then. And I don't know, I completely forgot
he does that in NJO as well, where he gets Scanner ISO to like cut his arm so he can just fucking blast something.
I'm gonna blast you, son.
But the so when they're saved, so Luke brings them out on like a midnight stroll to a hot spring, and they're all floating in it, and Luke is like saying, "Open your minds."
Dicks out, by the way.
He's telling them to just that they're separate them from themselves. They're all part of the universe, and they get this really trippy vision. What was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Luke almost gets
so that's what I'm gonna say. Like, pretty much everyone just Corran and Gantoris get this sense of danger. Most of the students are able to get out of the way, but Tion, who has like basically no force abilities, and I think Dorsk 81. He's in trouble. So Gantoris saves Dorsk 81. Corran like almost dies trying to save Tion, and Luke's just like, "Oh well, that was fun, guys."
Luke's like standing on the ledge, just nuts out. Everyone's like, "Luke, can you put a goddamn towel on, please? Do we really need to do this?" But no, yeah, because that is because he does save her with telekinesis. There, doesn't he?
Yeah,
pull her out of the water.
I think he absorbed the heat, and that's how he was able to do it. Otherwise, he would have died too if he didn't have that power. So Luke is just trying to like crispy fry all of the students.
I forget whose perspective we get in Jedi Academy trilogy, because we get the same scene there, and whoever it is just kind of absorbs the energy. Can't remember whose perspective we get though.
I don't remember.
Might have just been Luke's, actually. I think it was probably just Luke's.
He saves himself, and then everyone else was just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, Luke sucks though. He's not really trying. I was gonna say he's trying.
I have one note here from the duel with Gantoris, which is like soon after that scene, and then he dies the next day. But so Corran, this is the day after the tide pool event, because Corran was like kind of wiped out. He gets up late, and there's actually a thing about how like Luke is telling them that the Jedi don't dream, and Corran's troubled by bad dreams,
which is like Luke's dreaming all the time, and like that's like the entire plot of Fate of the Jedi. But okay,
and then in the prequels, like Anakin's talking to Yoda about how he's having nightmares and stuff. So
yeah, it's like Luke. Luke's just like, Jedi don't dream, and then later he's like, probably. Like Luke doesn't know
after the fight between Luke and Gantoris, where Luke is like, oh, okay, well, that was good. But learn to control your anger. It could be your undoing.
Oh, when Luke has a dream.
And where is it? Corran talks to Luke after the thing, and he said, how can it surprise you that Gantoris has found a way to fashion a lightsaber? You and Cam already possess one, so this is what we talked about. We talked about Gantoris competition with you. It's like, clearly he learned from someone.
Yeah.
So Corran says, I held my hands up, or that may be an issue, but not the core one as I see it. Luke says, so your vision here is paramount? It's like, no, he's pointing out that from his perspective, there's a problem. Why are you like this? Who hurt you?
Yep. That's why I wrote Bratty Luke.
Come on, Luke.
We also have that awkward moment where Corran basically says he's only attracted to white people. Which was a little strange.
There's that, and like Corran just wants to sleep with everyone in every book.
One of my notes from early on is it's why not just marry Leonia? Jeez, because like he gets the picture of Leona Tavira, and he's like basically drooling over her, and like half the reason he finds her so attractive, so really young.
Because there's that, then there's the Kamasi thing, then there's him being racist with Tion. But he's like, but I still would.
Like gross, but
it's like he's a horrible person. He's just a perv. He's a huge perv.
It's funny too because after he says that, really kind of noticing the developing boobs of the Kamasi, he says it reminded him of a Solonian, which made me kind of shudder even more because we know how he feels about Solonians. But yeah. I do kind of back on topic. I do like because I go back and forth on whether I like a Jedi not being able to use certain force ability or not, but I think it's handled okay in this book. Like we still don't really know why the lineage can't use those abilities, but I guess you kind of just chalk it up to like certain Jedi are just predisposed to certain abilities, really. Because like he in replacement of his telekinesis, he gets this ability basically to project images into people's minds, which he does very liberally. We'll talk about that when we get towards the end of the book, I'm sure.
Luke tries looking it up for him after he does it, because they're doing an exercise where they're supposed to lift the rock, but what Corran ends up doing is like inadvertently projecting the image in everyone's mind that he lifted the rock instead of actually lifting it. So
Luke's like, I'm on Wikipedia.
What it actually reads to me more like is like, okay, so this is a power called Alter Mind. So it's like he opened up the Wizard of the Coast Star Wars D&D handbook. Like, okay, so he spec 2 points into Alter Mind. He's gonna roll 2d6 and
make sure to practice your int in your dex.
Don't act like you understand tabletop role playing games.
Listen, I've played KOTOR. I understand it. I do like too how when Nija gets he basically sucks up when he's being attacked by the Dark Jedi. He basically sucks up the lightsaber. Kind of reminded me of that scene from the Old Republic trailer where what's her name sucks up the lightsaber, like getting jabbed at her. Satele. Yeah.
So it's kind of jumping ahead, cool. But like the vision that Corran gets there, and like the scene when it's replayed by Elagos, that to me felt. I don't know if you ever watched Game of Thrones, but it felt very like what was the scene called? Where the face gets smashed. When Jon Snow, like when Ned Stark and his buddies are all rolling up on Rhaegar's castle when they find Jon, that just kind of felt like that to me.
Yeah, because it's kind of like a standoff.
Sun Tower or something. I don't know.
Yeah, the Sun Tower. Yeah. I see. I've only watched up to where the books got, and then I stopped. But I remember that from the books. It kind of reminded me of like the fight where the mountain like crushes that, or is it the mountain? Or the mountain or the mountain's brother, one of them crushes that guy's head because he has him beaten, right? And then it's just like kind of a last moment,
with,
just like really gruesome death because he like basically describes him as like picking him up in a giant fist, just like crushing all of his bones, which is like probably
the other cool guy that
Dorian Martell, was that?
It was someone Martell.
I can't remember. Like I've been so long since I read them, and I never but yeah, interesting. Force Billy's kind of cool too. Like, and I do find it funny how like back there's like some things that you got in the old EU of this era didn't get that you don't get now. Like all Darksiders exploding into blue lightning.
Yeah, I had a note about that.
You get that back then, but it's not a thing now. And all Jedi disappearing immediately upon
death.
That
happens in NJO as well. Still.
Yeah. Which is understandable because they were just going off of like the only Jedi. Well, I guess Qui-Gon doesn't disappear. Well, I guess that was before Qui-Gon. Yeah. But like Yoda disappears and Obi-Wan disappears. So like, and Vader presumably disappeared. I guess we don't really know. But so by this point, all the Jedi that died did disappear. So it's kind of an understandable.
And I think it's in the episode 2 or 3 novelization where I think Yoda is like talking to Obi-Wan, like, I communed with our friend Qui-Gon and he showed me the secret to that.
Yeah, it's right at the end of episode 3.
But
which I think would have been cool in the movie if they could have, like, maybe not have that, but if they somehow had like Qui-Gon appear for just a second, like at the end of the episode 3 movie, just like as a bit of hope, I think that would have been cool.
Shaking his head at Anakin.
Because I remember reading
everyone.
Shaking my goddamn head.
Is it in the movie?
You were the chosen one. Qui-Gon, like, you're right, you know. No, I mean, like,
no.
In
I mean
the novelization,
the conversation where Yoda says that. Is that actually in the movie?
There is a bit where he's like, I've communed with an old friend. I think that line is basically, but there's more to it in the novelization. Because Obi-Wan goes, Qui-Gon? And Yoda's like, yeah, bitch.
Then he rolls a blunt.
Yeah, rolls a big fat doob. He's like, take much of this to Dagobah, I will. I just want to mention we also get a nice name drop of one of my missed characters, Lujani Forge. She wasn't in the books for very long. She's the one that gets shot during the raid, right?
Is she? I always get the Forge sisters mixed up in the first place.
Isn't she the one that gets like killed in her sleep?
Right. So Iniri's the one that's still alive then, or is it Iniri that dies?
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure Jane dies.
We need to do a reread
killed in her sleep,
of X-Wing.
She dies on Talassia. That's the thing about X-Wing. It throws so many names at you that like I forget so much about it. I'm just like, I know Oral, like I know Tycho and Wedge. Like I'm pretty much good. We also get Gavin name dropped, which was nice because I do
Gavin's
like Gavin
in a dog fight with him later on.
Mm-hmm. I actually love that scene. I thought it was really cool. I guess we'll get to that in a bit. What else do you want to talk about the
Academy? So
the whole Jedi Academy stuff. I really enjoyed this section though because we actually get like a slice of life. I mean, that's kind of what I really like about this book. It's like basically 2 or 3 different slices of life. Like you feel the time when he's on, because a lot of these big like spanning books, like even the Jedi Academy trilogy or the Thrawn trilogy or whatever, they cover so much like time. Like the Thrawn trilogy is what, like 6 months in total, or longer, and like same with. But in this book, it's a lot of time, but like you're just seeing a lot of day to day. Corran's going on his runs and he's talking to people, so you get kind of a slice of life that you don't ordinarily get, and I really enjoyed that actually.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I kind of liked about like early bits of The Mandalorian, which we talked about a little bit. But just kind of seeing the bits of the universe that are usually kind of less important, but here we have time to kind of go into it. That's
why like I love the beginning of the book where he's just like going to his apartment. I was like, oh cool, like you get to see like something that would be not important enough to be mentioned in another book. And some of that is the first person perspective, which I actually enjoyed. I was like, sometimes first person perspective books can come off as a little bit cheesy, but I thought they did a pretty good job with like keeping this one not dangerously cheesy, which is nice.
Yeah, so I think the only two things to sort of touch on are just the extra context we get for the fights with Exar Kun. And
there's a lot.
Yeah, because like there's the main one I wanted to talk about is just the attack by the ancient Sith beasts on Luke, where in the book in Jedi Academy we see 3 that are in the room fighting Jason, an infant with a lightsaber, but Corran in I, Jedi is like fighting a couple in Mara's Z95. And he ends up having to fly into space to shake off one that was like ripping his fighter apart. Meanwhile, again, 3-year-old with a lightsaber is fighting them to kill them off with Luke encouraging it. So it's really hard to say.
And like,
it's hard to say which Luke is more irresponsible, the I, Jedi Luke or the Jedi Academy Luke. But it's a close run.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned this during our discussion of the Jedi Academy trilogy, but really a lot of this is Corran is made very, very prominent in like almost everything that happens. So like Corran is kind of like becomes the de facto leader of not only things when Luke is incapacitated, but really like Corran is doing a lot of leading even when Luke is around. Like he's like kind of like preparing for the worst and stuff, and like he's getting people ready, and like
I don't know. He's getting a lot of input on certain things, but like it definitely both sides kind of highlight Cam as the sort of day-to-day lead and then Silgal as the representative. So I don't know that Corran really has a leadership position there because he's putting himself outside of the group so much. Is kind of what it gets portrayed as.
Well, I don't think he's got a formal leadership position, but I do think he takes a lead on like practical matters like quite frequently. Like in the destruction of the Exar Kun temple is a good one. And it's worth noting too, because some people might be confused, the character that Corran plays, and Corran is undercover at the temple. He goes by the name Kieran Halsey.
Green hair.
Which
is dyes literally every hair on his body green, because that is really how you blend in.
And then blonde later.
He's blonde when he's Janos Idanian. I forgot that he had that alter ego in a later bit.
It's kind of weird too, because when he's with Luke later on, Luke still refers to him as Kieran. But anyway, so yeah, like when it comes to as I was saying, Kieran Halcyon, the character, is not mentioned in the Jedi Academy trilogy. You get like 7 or 8, maybe 9 characters of the class of 12 that are named outright, and then you get the other ones. So you can imply Corran to be one of those remaining ones. But then in this, it's not super hard, I guess, to make the two work together. But so like when Exar Kun is being, part of the reason why he's fighting Streen and all of them with the trap is because Corran has sort of goaded him into it at his temple. So you kind of get a lot of extra that wasn't really in the book.
They're able to find some stuff for Corran to do without making it entirely be like, oh, well, actually nothing anyone else did mattered. It's all Corran. And I enjoyed that.
He mostly just goes for runs. I'm like reading this last night. It's like talking about going for a run. I'm just like in my belly every time. like gym's closed here, bud. Could run outside, but I don't know.
So after Exar Kun's dead, Luke wakes up and Corran's like, "Yep, I'm gonna duel you. Then I'm gonna head out."
Yeah, and Luke is so like defeated too. Luke's like, not another student leaving me. Please. Please don't leave.
Please stay in the academy.
Because Mara is left at this point. Tiantoris is dead. Kip, to be fair, is back. And And I do like how Corran, who is very, law and order minded, is like kind of not epic that Kip's still here.
And he's got some good points. Like if Kip was under Exar Kun's control and not influence, he probably would have just killed Luke outright.
Which is a great point, yeah.
And
he didn't.
Like they kind of come to the conclusion at the end is like, okay, well actually it's condemning Kip to a life of servitude in the Jedi.
It's like being a Jedi is kind of pretty epic though.
But
so
Corran and Kip tend to be on the opposite sides of the order for like the rest of Legends, where they're representing kind of different schools of thought, where Kip is basically the Jedi need to take action, we need to go and we need to right every wrong, and really just the fact that we're Jedi should mean people are listening to us. And Corran is like, no, we need to kind of determine what's the best path for the Jedi. We can help people, but we don't want to put ourselves in a position of power. We don't want to be like these vigilantes going around unrestricted in the rest of the galaxy. If only he didn't spend the next half of this book doing that. But there was one other point I wanted to talk about with when he's in the temple luring Exar Kun out or whatever, and Mara just shows up, didn't even check on him. He's like, "What's going on, Corran?" But also,
I guess she sensed
Mara or Exar Kun is like projecting images of Mirax and his mom, and being like, Mirax is saying, "You couldn't save me," and his mom's like, "He never cared if I died either." It's like, he's got a fair point there. You've never come up before.
Yeah, like I don't even know. I didn't even know you were dead until this point. So, yeah. What was I gonna say? I do like when Corran sees the Solo twins. He's like, okay, I kind of get the whole wanting to have kids thing. It talks about how like the twins are being like once the twins are born, and like of course they're super famous. It's like birth rates in the galaxy
Everyone's
spiked.
naming their kids Jason and Jaina.
It must get really old.
Well, that's what I'd name my kids. So I just wouldn't be able to tell Dana where the names came from.
Jason with a C, just to be different.
He's my favorite character, okay? He's actually a huge douche, but he's still my favorite character.
Yeah, well, he can be a good character and a douche. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so like Corran, speaking of douchey things to do, Corran decides he's out of the academy. He's going to call his father-in-law to come pick him up, take him home. Because the Jedi Academy stupidly doesn't keep any ships on hand.
Yeah, what are they doing with that?
So Corran calls Booster, who flies a little thing known as an Imperial Star Destroyer, doesn't tell Luke that this is coming. And Luke's like, "What do you mean stay calm? There's a Star Destroyer." No, it's fine. It's Booster.
I love the bit we get of the air adventure as well, because we learn about the different levels. There's basically like a slum. There's like a high class and a mid class level. That was pretty cool. It's like talking about how there's like construction efforts to like connect them all.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
You get like going through the stores, and you get like the thing you were saying earlier about Lando being there in Mara, but that's the second time he's on there, but still.
Yeah, I do want to mention too. There's one thing that I had a note on that I didn't. It talks about the holocron having different gatekeepers. It says auxiliary holocron gatekeepers. So I guess there's more than just.
Well, if he's on his lunch break when that's happening, like you can't just expect the guy to come through and answer every question. That'd be stupid.
That's true. But yeah, I don't know if we've ever had mention of that. I thought it was kind of interesting. Do you think, though, a little question before we move on, do you think this book would have been improved if Corran had taken Whistler with him? I think
that would have blown his cover. So, yes, it would have made the book much better. He's trying to be an invid, and he just got this astromech droid falling around. Like,
I don't know if that would be that weird.
No, this is like a high-grade military equipment used by the New Republic.
But it's also Whistler, who's like, he's had for ages, so he's probably like not in that great a shape. He's had Whistler since his dad was alive.
I don't know. I just think it would be weird. I don't know. I like Whistler. Whistler's
I
great,
accept that,
but Whistler would have just compromised the whole mission.
I gotta say, like, Corran talks about how like he uses Whistler as like a sounding board and like how Whistler gives good advice. Then later on, he just fucking destroys a droid, just cuts him. He's like just cuts him in half, no second thought. Like you basically acknowledge that Whistler's your best friend. He's obviously sentient. Like these droids clearly like you're just gonna kill one.
Hey,
It's
he
just
doesn't
like
hate
that.
droids.
Like
One of
come
his
on,
best
man.
friends is a
Come on,
droid.
dude. Yeah, exactly. My sister's married to a droid. Come on.
So yeah, he's not telling Booster anything about where
Guys.
Mirax is. He actually told Wedge to keep it a secret that she was captured. So Booster's not pleased, but Corran's able to convince him that he should help Corran get into Corellia to meet his grandfather or to see his grandfather, because Corellia's kind of locked in or isolated right now under the diktat, who's being a real diktat, and he also wants access to his.
Because he got a people.
That's disgusting. He wants access to Booster's data network so that he can find some part of the Invids to infiltrate. So, is there much you want to say about the Corellia trip?
Yeah, so there's something interesting that the audiobook does. And the audiobook, sometimes the shortened ones, they will change things around or just make changes, not only to remove things, but they'll also just slightly adjust how things work. So in this book, for one, Corran never loses his lightsaber, which I think is fine, or he never gives his lightsaber, which I thought was fine. Kind of a weird change. He never goes to Corellia. After when he's leaving Yavin, he has the kind of dream he does later of his grandfather being killed, and that's kind of what leads him to abandon being a Jedi. Same as really in the book, but without going to Corellia. And you really don't lose that much. I actually quite enjoy the Corellia scenes because it's more slice of life stuff, just day to day, like the stuff he's doing. For some reason, even though Mirax is still frozen somewhere, he's like out. He goes out for a night with his grandfather, which I thought was a cool little bit. But it's like doing a lot of stuff. Like wasting a lot of time.
He basically finds out about his grandfather. He has that his bio grandfather. He has that dream, which he could have just had anywhere. And we go basically from like Errant Venture to Corellia Errant Venture. You could have just truncated that, and audiobook I guess does, but it was a nice couple scenes, just not super relevant.
Yeah, I like the gardening stuff. Like he's like going into the secret, the like little kind of dungeon. Well, not dungeon. It's like a little shelter they have kind of hidden. That was enjoyable. So I'm glad it was in there, but if you're gonna truncate it, pretty good. Like it doesn't really change much, and like him giving up the lightsaber, I guess I get that he's symbolically trying to separate himself from his Jedi past, but I don't really get that because I don't know. It's just kind of weird that like his response to the training not working is to totally give up that part.
And especially because like a lightsaber is super useful to have. He knows how to use it now, and he's going to go in a dangerous situation. He's looking for Mirax when he's been so pragmatic in other situations. Whereas like right now, I could see maybe like I'm going to rescue Mirax, and then until I feel I've earned this, I'm not going to use it after that. But like the fact that he might need it to rescue Mirax should really take priority there. Even if it would probably be difficult to smuggle it into pirate land.
It is a bit weird too how like, and we get more of this later on, but he spends a lot of time talking about how he's so experienced going undercover and so experienced breaking up gangs from the inside, but then he goes into this gang and he basically like loses himself for a while. And just kind of weird considering that's supposed to be one of his main character traits and one of his main kind of stories as an investigator is how often he's like, I've done this dozens of times, but this time for some reason, just because he is having that sort of like ego struggle, he like almost loses himself. But I just thought that was kind of strange.
He was mostly looking to like find a way to integrate himself and work his way up the ranks. And I don't know how the New Republic would really feel about this, especially when he starts
No sharding. Our laundry
When he
machines have
starts
limited capacity.
firing on New Republic ships, and he's leading the
Mm,
squadron. Like, you're leading them to get to Mirax, but the New Republic has official operations going on to find the Invidious in Mirax, which you have left to take part in
yeah.
this. So it seems like it might be a bit of an issue. But hey, if Kip can get away with blowing up Karita, then who's to say?
I mean, they literally do find the Invidious as well, and Corran helps it escape. I was kind of under the impression that Mirax was on the Invidious. I'm not sure. Was that something that like may have misread the scene, but because Exar Kun shows him that gives him that kind of vision, and I thought it was implying that that Mirax was on the Invidious, but I guess not.
It's unclear if she was kept at like a base on Susefvi, or if she was on Invidious the
mm,
whole time. Because like it's
mm,
the Gensari that wanted to lure Corran to them. So it could have
yeah,
gone either way there.
she's probably
So
on planet the whole time.
yeah, I guess because she was on the
Yeah,
Invidious when they got her. She's probably there the whole time actually. But so yeah,
yeah.
he joins Rock Squadron, wants to show that he rocks. Uh, Meets a new nemesis for a few chapters named Remart, who's like the biggest asshole.
Yeah. Basically tries to rape that
Yeah,
Algos Okla's daughter. Which is pretty dark. Yeah, so Corran goes under so basically he goes undercover with or not really the Invids, kind of like this
Quimani
it's kind of they're
survivors.
yeah, they're basically like a pirate gang. But they're like kind of it's weird because so Corran gets into this pirate gang, which is sort of working for the Invids, which are like this larger pirate gang, but also have ex imps in them. And Corran is like doing a really good job of like keeping them from killing
Mm-hmm.
people and things like that. And most of the pirates are kind of okay with that, which I guess is fine. They're pirates, they're cool at stealing, but I guess just generally they're not like
Except for
monsters.
Remart.
And we get more of that towards yeah Remart. He's basically like Corey said, he's basically Corran's nemesis, and he moves to a different squadron because there's like three squadrons um, within this pirate group. And Corran starts off. It's
Yeah,
Rocks.
he's
Is it
with
Rock
Rock, and
Squadron
then
he
he
starts
needs
off
to work
in?
up his way into Bolt, which is like the head of the pirates in that group, the best squadron
Mm-hmm.
there, because he talks to yeah.
Because if you're in Bolt,
Go for it.
yeah, if you're in Bolt, you can get moved
Yeah,
onto the Invidious, and he believes that's how he can
yeah.
find
He's told by his new friend in the
Mirax.
pirates, Kate, who is a Shistavanian. Yeah, she was a fun
I liked her.
character. That the only way, like the two ways to get onto the Invidious are becoming like a high-ranking Bolt Squadron that member that takes the notice of Tavira, or to basically become one of Tavira's many concubines. And Corran thinks he
Mm-hmm.
wants the squadron method, but eventually starts thinking like, you know what?
It's like if I have to bang her for Mirax's sake, what's a man supposed
What
to
am I
do?
supposed to do? Just not have sex with someone else?
Yeah, because she's like even from the beginning he's like really into her. Even though she's like totally cruel and evil, um, and whatnot, but not very not a very cash money thing for Corran to do. But at one point, so a lot of this arc is basically Corran kind of coming to terms with like he's got to make all parts of his background work. He's got to be part Coruscant. He's got to be part Jedi. Got to kind of use them both, and that's really what the sort of opening half of this investigator
Mm-hmm.
arc is all about. Because he starts falling into the Invids like actually like he basically gets Remart killed by goading him into a fight. And he just starts doing, and then there's a whole thing with wanting to bang her, and it's just he basically just starts becoming real sleazy, and he's like, "Shit, I
Mm-hmm.
am becoming sleazy." And then he meets Elagos Akla, who and it becomes a character in other books, and then eventually dies in the NJO, unfortunately. Then gets a Star Destroyer named
A
after
really
him for some
powerful
reason.
one.
Elagos, yeah, yeah. Elagos kind of helps set him straight, which is a very
Elagos.
I
Yeah,
love Elagos.
Elagos
He's a great
oral. Corran
character.
doesn't deserve his friends.
No, he does.
But yeah, so he's kind of struggling to move up the ranks. They finally do a raid on Zophel, which is where they come up against Rogue Squadron, and that's where he takes Tavira's attention, and she kind of moves him up to Bolt Squadron leader, moves the former leader up into her staff, and after that, that's when he's working directly with Remart, who at first Remart's pissed off, but then Remart becomes one of Tavira's sex buddies, and Remart's like, "Oh, everything's fine between us now." But then he tries to kill the Kamasi, and Corran's like, "No, that's not very cash money. Not gonna let that happen."
Yeah, so when they're for those who don't know, the Kamasi are like really, really unfortunate for them in the galaxy. They're basically this really well-loved race. And he talks about in the book how like many species have used the word Kamasi to refer to like as like a friend or like a trusted person. And the planet was bombed by the Empire. And that's kind of what the Thrawn duology is largely about. It's like who put down the shields on Kamaz. It was some Bothans, and there's like a big Bothans suck generally. So there's big controversy brewing. And then, of course, the Kamasi are moving across the galaxy. Of course, lots of them settle on Alderaan right before it's destroyed. But others are settling on different planets, and these pirates are raiding one of these planets, one of these new kind of Kamasi colonies, and they just want supplies. But of course, they get down to the planet's surface, and Remart has killed a few. There's also slavers there too, and they kill the slavers, and then they get down to the planet's surface, and Remart is about to kill Elagos Akla, and Corran's like, "You can't do that. He's my slave now." And then basically goads Remart into a fight and just beats the shit out of him, like really, really badly.
Yeah. And after this point, Elagos kind of insists that he go with Corran and becomes kind of his moral center again, kind of drags him back to who he's supposed to be.
Yes.
Because Elagos is aware of who Corran is, because Elagos is the nephew of Corran's grandfather's best friend, and one of the things about Kamasi is that they can exchange memories, so they're called Memni. They can do that with each other, but they can also do it with the... they can do it with the...
My memory's not so good.
They can also do it with Jedi.
Yeah. And Elagos's uncle, as we mentioned, was also a Jedi and was the one serving with Corran's grandfather. So there's quite a connection there. And then once Elagos really gets it, it helps Corran get his shit together. One thing I did want to mention before we get onto that kind of latter half of this arc is I do really like the scene where he's fighting Rogue Squadron. It's similar to when remember when they go undercover in the other Rogue Squadron books? Is that Corran who goes undercover? And I remember there's like kind of the same thing.
For
it's like
the Coruscant raid or for Coruscant capture?
No, remember. I can't remember. Is it the Wraith Squadron books where one of them goes undercover with one of the Imperials? I can't even remember now. Remember they have the...
Well, when they're doing the pirates... When they're
I think it's when they're hacking the... is it when they're...
So Face is trying to be because they're tracking the captain?
Yes. Yes, right. Because they steal like TIE interceptors, don't they? And then they make their way into the group.
Well, they end up with because
there's kind of a similar thing.
It's like... And then Face is trying to pretend to be Derillian every time Zinch calls.
Right, because it's kind of like the same thing. It's like you're fighting your own guys. It's like, how do you kind of... but I also like how Corran by this point is like fully Force sensitive. We see him kind of expand his insights and whatnot throughout. And I really like how he talks about like... No, he talks about like I can't remember who it's first. I guess it's Oral. He sees Oral's perspective, and then later it's Tycho, and it's like he like has so much more respect for Wedge and Tycho because they're like their minds are just incredible. Like he's got the Force, which he leans on, but he's like Tycho is out there. He's just like crushing it on his own. Same with Wedge. He says even though Wedge isn't in the battle, he's like got a lot more respect for how they operate, which I thought was cool.
And he's like, "Oh, Oral must have been holding back when he's flying with me because he's so good."
Yeah. Which that would be a very oral
Oral's
thing
a
to
real
do.
bro. Oral and Elagos, they're the real ones.
Really is. Oral, the kind of dude that never forget your birthday.
Did I? Is this
It's
a
like,
shot at me?
No,
I didn't.
No, I don't think you forgot my birthday.
2 years ago, I didn't say anything about it.
It's okay. Forgiven. But I didn't say anything about yours.
Just
either.
Ask me, is anything happening with that Ascendance as well? Can I get an early build? I found
is that
I
true?
take a lot of screenshots of messages for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I was deleting a bunch of stuff,
Kind of creepy,
and I found something of that. I think I was just happy that such a large channel wanted to play our stuff, so I took a screenshot of that to send it to the team.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think that's creepy, it wasn't.
Was it actually on your birthday?
Bringing that up because it was a thing around that time. I think it was like January or February.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone knows we're March birthdays.
Of 2018? So. Interesting. Sounds about right to me. So yeah, at that point, we were saying he kind of decides, okay, I gotta be done with these pirates. We gotta just take the pirates, getting too close to them. And then he really does some questionable shit.
Well, Elagos kind of signs off on this, where he's like, I need to find out who I am now. What I'm going to do is go undercover as my Jedi self and just cause them all. I'm going to do stuff to just make them lose morale so that everyone kind of quits the pirates. I don't see the direct connection with Mirax, but his plan was very, very very tentative here.
The leader of like the group he's a part of is Jacob Knives. He is the leader, right? And basically, he's a pretty good dude. Like he doesn't like killing random people. He tells Corran, like, I hope you rub off on us, i.e., like, I hope we start to be more kind.
You don't want to tell Corran to rub off on stuff because he just takes it the way you'd expect.
And at one point, Corran's like, Jacob told me all these fears about becoming like that he was losing himself, and he told me this like in confidence, like late one night, and then he's like, I'm gonna use that against him and go into his mind. Like that's like probably one of the most dark side things you can do, right? Because like Luke even warns him, like you don't fuck with people's minds, like it's a big betrayal, and like we get a lot of that I think in the Thrawn duology as well. And Corran is just like, I'm going to take this guy's fears, and this guy is not only his fears, but his fears which reveal that he's actually a good person deep down, and use it against him and fucking scare the shit out of him. And
this does go back to some of the conversations he had, especially when leaving the academy with Luke, where Luke is like, look, if you think it's not just light side and dark side, then you're going to go to the dark side. And Corran's like, no, I had a hard life, and you don't know my story, and I'm not, I don't go to the dark side. And then he tries to say the same thing to Mara, but it basically, retrospectively, a lot of what Luke says ends up being right. It's just some of the Luke's an idiot does just come from the fact that Corran has that naive perspective of him.
It's kind of funny, too, because Corran later at one point says, when you see people like Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine who are like so objectively evil, you think like the dark side will be an obvious decision, but really it's like the day-to-day thing. And it's like, do I beat somebody up just because I can? But it's kind of weird too, because earlier on when he's having that discussion with Luke, he's like, listen, I've been places, like I've seen the dark side, like when it's not sexy, you know, like I've seen like a man beat up his wife and stuff. So he can kind of talk the talk when it comes to the like time to do so. He does not walk the walk at all. Like he fully embraces it. Like on a small level, and he catches himself. But,
and he ultimately, the end of his, or close to the end of his escapades here, ends up with Shala the Hutt, who's kind of in charge in the local area on Corcus, the planet they're on for these pirates. And he thinks his big thing is going to be that he's going to go in, he's going to end Shala, and that's really just going to send things into a tailspin. And Elagos is like, yeah, nah. And
don't think you will,
like,
bud.
No, trust me, I got this. And I was just like, yeah, nah. And it's like, no, I got this. Yeah. And he does it anyways. He built a lightsaber for all of this out of some like wine bottles that Tavira sent. It was where he got the crystals. But so with his makeshift lightsaber, he goes in and then doesn't realize that he's walking into an ambush. The whole thing that they're in explodes. Him and Shala. So Shala gets killed, and he gets like his clothes get blown off of him. He absorbs he uses his force absorption to take in all the fire and make like a big projected image of essentially a giant naked Jedi at that point.
Look unto my dong in despair.
I have become dong.
Destroyer of Salonians.
So yeah, he's like,
all right, guys, that's gonna be it.
He's stumbling home. Elagos comes across like, drunk again, I see, and then some women laugh at him.
It's like, you're hanging dong, right?
Bad.
You could have projected that field like a couple inches out. He's like, I know,
but I didn't.
But I didn't, did I? I'm very comfortable with my body.
That's actually the Corellian accent, for
real. Yes. Speaking of Corellian, we get a lot of the odd thing in this book, of course, because it's the Stackpolian odds.
Yeah.
Becomes almost like it's not just a thing that was referenced in the movie. Like everyone in the galaxy knows about Corellians and their odds. Luke says it twice within like 5
I'm going to
pages.
stop you here. We know odds.
Yes.
That was like my impression of Luke in universe, not me saying don't talk about this, because this is one of the best topics we ever go on.
Pretty happy with what I could do.
But yeah, so they like all of the stuff that he's doing here, trying to like bring down morale. It essentially comes to nothing, because after Shala blows up, he's kind of put in charge and told, you need to get things in shape around here. And so he starts doing that. He starts getting like, as in his guise as Jano Sedanian, he starts saying like, okay, this is all the security stuff we're going to do. The mysterious Jedi stops attacking. So everyone thinks it's working. And his plan is that he's going to die. And like he's going to set up his own death, and then everyone's really just going to drop off the face of the earth. And apparently people are really dumb because he like walks into a bar dressed as a Jedi. It's not like some Team Rocket level disguise shit, but no one seems to realize it's the exact same dude. He's never around at the same time, but eventually he's like,
I'm just drunk all the time.
He walks in, he sees some pirates on a corner. He's like, okay, these are my next targets. And turns out they've all got lightsabers because they're Jintari. Oops.
It's like everyone knew the whole time. It was just like kind of sad. It's like, oh look, it's that Jedi again. It's like, no one break his spirit. I've never seen him so happy.
Elagos actually just put it on. Everyone like, okay, just go along with this. We've got another. Make it look like you're running away. Like, we've got another village over there. He's not going to kill anyone, but just.
It's like Corran talks about himself as like a predator. Well, he's like, when I worked in Coruscant, I was a predator. Probably right. He's like, no, I've got Jedi powers. I'm a super predator. Like, not very light side sounding.
So this is, everyone keep this in mind for New Jedi Order, when Kip is just saying, why don't we just do that all the time? And I think Ganner actually specifically brings up what Corran is doing here. So he doesn't just get away with it.
Oh, really?
I can't remember if it's Ganner. It's either Ganner, Kip, or Anakin that brings it up, or Jason. Probably Jason. Probably Jason, because Jason's the one like questioning everything and spending all his time with Corran until Corran decides he's just kind of going to take the rest of the war off.
I did find it funny that the lightsaber crystal he called was a Kubas Zirconia. Yeah. Like, I was like, okay.
That was a reach.
That was pretty funny.
That was ready for Halo reach.
But so Luke and Oral show up. to save him, basically, as he's being attacked by these Jensari. And he's like, how did you show up? And it's like, clearly they both like hacked his MSN or something. Or like are in his emails, but they're just like, I knew when to come and he knew where to come. And Corran's like, okay, oh shit, he went for it.
If you were ready, you would have been here and now.
I didn't quite understand that. I guess it's just like Gand got some powers and Jedi got some powers. You put them together.
Right. No, Oral's just been watching the whole time.
Yeah. Oral's like, Corran, you forgot to turn your Snapchat location off.
So Corran sees that that his buddies are there, and he's just like, hi, dudes. And they decide, you know what, let's just, the plot of the book is really dragging on here. Let's just fly up to the ship, which we know where it is from the Jensari. They do some interrogation. Luke pretends that he's the hardcore, silent, bad cop. Corran's like, look, I got to get this information from my boss. We'll let you go. I'll file this away on your taxes. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah. And then basically everything, like, until then, it's kind of funny because basically they stole Mirax to get Corran there. So, like, they would have came from eventually, right? Like Corran goes on this big adventure, and by the end, it was like,
it was about finding. It was about the right time. Like, this is what Oral and Luke are really just hammering into him. Where it's like, it's a. The real book was the friends you made along the way. So I was just gonna run down more of the plot. What do you got?
No, it's the same thing I was gonna do. I mean, we're basically like, we're getting near the end. They go to this final planet, and then they kind of the Imperial compound on there. They rescue Mirax. They ruthlessly kill some stormtroopers, and Luke's like, Corran, you kind of got to work on giving these guys a warning. And Corran's like, I'll worry about that later. And Luke's like, shit.
Yeah.
Like, let's worry about it now.
So, yeah, they just kind of get on the ship. They find Mirax. They have a quick duel with the Jensari leader. Then they tell her, well, actually, you're kind of evil. And show a duel that she was, like, well aware of what happened, pretty much. Like, I don't see how any of the context Elagos made by sharing the vision or sharing the memory with her would have really explained it. Because Luke's like, did you actually maybe consider that the person who died was an asshole that you cared about? It's like, oh yeah.
Exactly. And she's like, did you ever consider that?
Like, the only real information that we kind of gleaned from that is that Ilenic thought that Nico Tiras smelled bad, because they refer to them all like the Kamasi memories. Those scenes end up referring to the people by a scent rather than the name, and so like Ilenic refers to Nija Halcyon, Corran's grandfather, as Spicewood, because that's what he smells like to him. Yeah, that sounds
kind of
like
sexy, to be honest.
Yeah, deodorant
very
scent
pleasant
or something. But then Nico Tiras, the Anzadi who they're killing, who's like the former lover of the Jensari leader, which is why she was hunting down Corran, because Corran's grandfather killed her husband. Ilenic calls him Night Sweat. It's like,
it's like taint juice.
Yeah, like, truly we have all learned how to cooperate.
Hands that have recently touched balls, we meet again. Like, and you know who the other Jedi is there?
In the group of 3, or no?
Yeah,
is it?
It's Obi-Wan. It's supposed to be Obi-Wan. Yeah,
I was unaware of that.
Yeah, it was confirmed at some point, but I think there have been hints, not in the book, but it's confirmed at some point. It's supposed to be Obi-Wan with them. I forget what they call him. It's Sand something.
Sandy Taint actually is.
Stinky feet. Oh, that's so silly. You think they just bullshit? It's like, So, like, I'd be curious. Be like, what do I smell like? Ass. I can't lie. I'm sorry.
Like, young unwashed anus.
Desert wind. Yeah.
Oh, because he lived on
Desert
Tatooine later, right? That one.
Yeah, they probably just and then the Gensari, they're like, okay, I guess we weren't being that epic. And the duel between Corran and the Gensari leader is kind of fun. And then Corran's like lightsaber just dies. Which I guess is like, I forget when, like, because they deal with lightsaber resistant material in the Thrawn duology when they're in like Thrawn's compound. I think it like shorts out lightsabers in that too,
the
right?
cortosis. Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually later on it just kind of blocks it, but here it just really fucks it up.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it fucks it up like that on other occasions, but I don't know. I might be mistaken.
Well, there is one other point to the book where Corran, him and Luke talk about how he doesn't want to go back to the Academy, and Luke was going to ask him not to go back to the Academy, but he asked for one final favor where he just wants to blow up the statue of the temple of Exar Kun. So that was the end. Then he goes back to Rogue Squadron.
Someone in the chat just pointed out it was supposed to be Obi-Wan come out of Hermitage to help. So Obi-Wan is a hermit at this point. I don't know. The timeline is so messed up. I guess that would make,
because he's coming from Tatooine.
Yeah,
but
that kind of makes the ages a bit difficult.
I mean, the ages were always going to be difficult with this.
But it's going to be weird because the Gensari leader would have to be really old if...
Yeah, and she was kind of described that way.
Yeah. Even like Corran is like still gets his horny moment because he's like, man, that hurt.
Well, you can't expect Corran to see something and not want to sleep with it.
Yeah. It's like Corran's like driving down the road and there's like a squirrel like looks at him a little too long.
Reminds me of Turtle Roar.
Like, you like, you better watch out.
There is one other thing that we kind of skipped over earlier that I did want to bring up that I thought was kind of interesting with the conversations between Luke and Corran. Obi-Wan reminded me of it, where Corran was talking about Luke's teaching style and saying like, well, you learned what you needed to learn from Obi-Wan and Yoda, but they were teaching you to fight the Empire specifically. And they were kind of like, Corran's theory is that they were setting Luke up to be like, pull Vader into him, like to raise some alarms that he was out there. He's like, why would they send you to Tatooine and call you Luke Skywalker? Like, he's just asking for trouble.
To be fair, good point, but
no,
I never got the impression that's what Yoda was doing. At least maybe like Obi-Wan, I feel like was a bit more kind of pointed in his training, but yeah,
I kind of got the opposite read of him. Where, like, to me, it was more Yoda was just training him as the one, just only cared about him on that level. But with Obi-Wan, there was still the, like, you're my best friend's son element. But
yeah, fair enough. Yep.
Like, both of them clearly wanted him to, like, carry on the Jedi mantle, need to destroy the Empire, but...
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, at the end, as I think you started, he... gets ready. He takes the X-wing to Yavin and he blows up the temple
using his Rogue 9 call sign. So he's back in the squad.
Yeah, and he had the Rock 9 call sign too, which was quite convenient.
Just in case you forgot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically it. Anything else you want to mention? Any other plot points you want to cover?
If you want to go on to the ranks and then emails.
Sure. Do you want to
so
go first?
First off, we're just going to... Basically what we do at the end of the episode is we kind of put it in the list of where our current rankings are. I'm going to put it on screen here. And I'd like to make some sort of spreadsheet that I can just link on the audio version for people who want to look that up, because it's going to start getting more cumbersome. Then we can just... Audio listeners can see that as well, rather than us reading it out every time. But we're going to do questions after this, so if people want to just tag us with any questions... ideally related to this book, we're going to answer a few emails and then we'll get to that. So, I really liked it. It's kind of in with the this upper tier of books for me with like all the other X-Wing books and MedStar. So I would probably put it between Iron Fist and Wraith Squadron. Maybe even above. I'm going to put it above Iron Fist. So just below Battle Surgeons. So what are you thinking?
Okay. Yeah, like for me, I really enjoyed this too. I thought the perspective was great. I loved how much kind of territory it covered. It is a long book, and it feels long too. Like 400 and I think it's 450 pages. It's not that long of a book for some. That's the hardcover count anyway.
Soft cover I have right here. It is 577. So it's quite long for a Star Wars book.
And it does, and it feels that length too.
Star by Star is like one of the few longer than it.
6 something.
It's a thick boy. I'm just looking at it right now.
Yeah, real thick. Like don't let Corran check it out. I'm trying to figure out where I want to put it. Like, I think I might put it probably below MedStar as well. Actually, I think I'm. Actually, I'm going to put it. I think above MedStar and below Rogue Squadron.
I'm kind of thinking that too, but I feel like I'm retroactively downplaying how much I like the first.
Yeah, that's the exact same thing with me, and like I feel like if I were to just looking at my list now, I almost switch MedStar and Rogue Squadron, but like. I think I might put iJedi above MedStar, actually. I think that's going to be my above MedStar, but I think below Rogue Squadron. Yeah.
Oops. All right.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to think about it because I might end up putting it above. But those books are really fun, and like they kind of have like a looseness that like this book doesn't have. But yeah, so guys, for those wondering, because I'm seeing some questions, these are our rankings right now. These are all the books we've read. Seeing people wondering like, where's Black Fleet Crisis? Just we haven't read it yet.
Yeah, these are just the books that we've covered on the podcast so far. Our rankings of them.
Yeah, great book though. I thought it was really fun. Corran's a fun character. Michael Stackpole writes a good Star Wars. Despite there's some weirdness in there, but it's like you read it and you're like, okay. It's fun weirdness, I guess.
All right. So we did get a bunch of emails this week. We kind of addressed some at the start, like with the email from Austin, I believe that one was. I'm just going to scroll up so I can see it again. Yeah, from Austin's email talking about Clone Wars questions. We will get to that with our Clone Wars episode, which we're going to do next Thursday, tentatively, in case something else comes up there. Same thing with the KOTOR question from Benjamin. Justin Taylor wrote in once again with a few questions for us. So if you want to take that one.
So he points out correctly that Akbar was staying with Winter. Probably an open relationship, I think. It points out that the New Republic is not always the most content, and also wondering what is R2's kill count by the end of Legacy Comics.
Everyone.
It's got to be
if it was like the X-Wings where we don't know how you have the little pips drawn on, like the Death Star pip and everything drawn on, or painted on Wedge's X-Wing. R2 would just be littered in tattoos.
Yeah, like R2 is like coldly and dangerously competent. Like it's the only way. He does it feel manipulative when he's talking to Corran about being a Jedi? I think we mentioned that too at the beginning. Already like at the beginning of or at the end of, I think it's Wedge's Gamble. He meets Luke, and he kind of turns down the opportunity then. Or not Wedge's Gamble, because he's presumed dead at the end of Wedge's Gamble. So at some point, anyway.
I think the kind of the most relevant one here, like the most, because we didn't really touch on that much. I think we kind of touched on a lot of these other points.
That's true.
With just our discussions throughout the episode. But do you have any thoughts on? So basically, Justin's asking, What are your opinions on the various Grey Jedi Force or Grey Force groups that exist, and on the Jensari? What's your opinion on the Green Jedi? In my opinion, having their own group of Jedi, while fitting in perfectly with Corellia, seems like something the Order at large wouldn't really tolerate.
Yeah, so in Legends there are a lot of these like Jedi offshoots. Like the Ang T are like on the lower level of what would be considered a Jedi offshoot, or like the Baron Do, for example, because they are kind of like light side traditions but not quite Jedi. And then like get like it's kind of funny because Corran Horn in this is basically like a Falinasi. Because he's using like illusions. So I do kind of like that there are these other groups that have kind of sprung up. I don't think that you should try to like I don't think that Jensari should be called Jedi, because I don't like the idea of gray Jedi generally. So like I think if they're gonna exist, they should just be called other like Force traditions, if you know what I mean. But like I kind of liked how Legends had all of these little sects and stuff, but it does get kind of weird how many of them survived Order 66. Like the Falinasi largely survive Order 66. The Baron Do do as well, but I mean, to be fair, they kind of hide on purpose to
no one's
survive.
gonna fuck with the Yang T.
It just kind of makes, yeah, but it does kind of make the galaxy be a bit crowded in a way, especially when like the Jedi religions are supposed to have died out. So it takes away from it a bit in that sense. But otherwise, I kind of like them. What
Yeah,
are
I
your
mostly
thoughts,
agree
though?
there. Like the weirdest one for me has always kind of been the Jensari, because like they are more of a splinter from the Jedi than the other ones, because they were kind of broken off from the Jedi directly to some extent, and they grow to the prominence they do still under the Empire. So, and there's at least a dozen in this book, if not more, in the galaxy, and like they're outnumbering the Jedi almost for Luke's.
You don't really see them.
Well, a lot of them
afterwards
actually
either.
do go and join Luke's academy, but I
Do we
don't
get any
think
of them
so.
by name though? Like, yeah, like the Jensari leader, like she's pretty powerful, it seems. Although, like when it comes to the actual battle, like Luke easily like defeats them, because they are Force tradition, but they're not nearly practiced as like Luke, and he like it's just like describes Luke like tearing through 5 of them, no problem. And even Corran is like a decent match for like, and he's a new Jedi. He's a decent match for the Jensari leader. But the Green Jedi, that's a name for Corellian Jedi, I think. Doesn't really mesh with what we got later on, but I kind of thought it was an interesting. Like I don't like the idea of Jedi being like sexless hermits, or the hermit part is fine, but I guess like I always thought that, I mean, that's kind of the point, is I think the Jedi rules are supposed to have been, by the time of like the prequels, the Jedi rules are supposed to have gotten a little out of control and too doctrinal and stuff. So it doesn't fit within that, because the Jedi in Legends, I guess, before the prequels, I guess they didn't have the idea that the Order would be so kind of not corrupt, but so kind of weighed down by rules and stuff. So it's kind of hard to reconcile because it's just so different.
Then we got Tyler Johnson saying, "Hey man, I'm a huge fan of the podcast and y'all's YouTube channels. I always look forward to seeing new videos and podcast episodes that never a dull or uninteresting episode or video. I'm a dude in school with limited time and limited money, so in your opinion, is The Rise of Skywalker novelization worth spending my time and money on? I enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker movie, and there were things in the movie I wanted more expansion on. So does the novelization add anything that is actually worth going and reading?"
Honestly, if you have limited money, I don't think the novelization adds enough to be worth it. No, I would probably go for something else. I mean, I think like if you really want value out of a movie novelization, the Episode 3 one, for example. But just generally, I think there's more you can do. Even like the what's that book that came
Visual
before called
Dictionary?
again? No, the it was one of the before the Rise of Skywalker books. What was it called again? I'm forgetting the name of it. It was basically about them getting fleets together and stuff. Chat, can you help me out here? What's it called again? Resistance Reborn. I would probably get that maybe instead. But yeah, otherwise there's lots of other books that you get. Honestly, if you need a book, I would get Lost Stars if you want to do new canon, or Thrawn 1. But
yeah, I haven't read it, so I have nothing really to add there. We'll probably get to it at some point on the podcast. I've just been spending so long trying to catch up on some Legend stuff that it's like I've got a decent pile of
it's very low
new canon stuff that I haven't gotten to yet, but I hopefully will soon.
Another good option is to get, honestly, like if you can afford it, like an Audible membership is good. Like it works out if you only get one book a month, it works out to be cheaper. And all of the audio productions are really well done. So like that's something that I would recommend. And you can get The Rise of Skywalker on there if you want. I think so. The next question is from Ian, and he just says, "It's very disappointed with Alphabet Squadron. Yeah, it wasn't that great in my opinion. Yurika, it's a worst version of Gara Pedithal. Yeah, I can see that. Do you think Kevin J. Anderson had more influence than the quality of his work deserved over the Bantam era? And while he definitely shaped the Bantam era hugely, do you think his stuff holds up today in quality in terms of really recommendable books?" I mean, I think besides for the Thrawn trilogy, I think it's pretty standard with what you'd expect in the era. But the influence he has is huge because he basically sets up the entirety of Luke's future with the Jedi.
Well, I think the biggest thing that Kevin J. Anderson does that's really important, even outside of the quality of, like, no matter what your opinion of the quality of his work is, positive or negative, is that he was willing to kind of bring together certain elements of the universe that others didn't. And definitely. He kind of opened the door for others to do that. So I think a lot of what he was doing was very necessary for that if we wanted the continuity to go the way it did. Because it could have just as easily been a situation, I spoke about this on a few other previous episodes, where Dark Empire kept on going and being its own thing. The Bantam books kept going, being their own thing.
One-off books and every time.
Like, if for example, let's say all the books were written by Timothy Zahn, as much as I love Timothy Zahn's work, he is one of the less interconnected of the authors. And eventually he does try to tie everything more together with like Outbound Flight and the plans for the Yuzhan Vong and Survivor's Quest. But
well, mostly his stuff together.
But he's less engaged with the rest of the universe, and he very much, like, he outright refused to have the Thrawn trilogy be incorporating stuff from Dark Empire, which is why it ended up being set before Dark Empire instead of after. Whereas Kevin J. Anderson, he was willing to be like, okay, this character from over here, this character from over here, and was also fine with other authors doing that with his stuff, and kind of sets the tone for that being the thing to do, leading to us getting an expanded universe continuity that was anywhere near as consistent as it was, which there's a lot of problems there still, but instead of, like, it's not just Marvel's its own thing, Dark Empire or whatever, it's at least one universe.
Yeah, and I mean, he was also writing stuff like when a lot of new books were coming.
Yeah.
So that was important.
There's like 6 months where 18 books come out, and there's no way all the authors are going to be able to coordinate on that until you get to how Del Rey did it, where it was like where they hired James Luceno to basically tell everyone, okay, this is what you are and aren't allowed to do. Go write your part of the story.
Yeah. Good question, though. The last one is from Bright Spark, who correctly points out that a good idea for a shirt or a poster would be a Corran love tier list.
So I responded to this email saying that would just be a picture of a Salonian, basically. So
yeah, we got to go through, and because there's a lot, there's like, we can add 3 new ones from this book. I still don't. Merrick's not at the top.
It is what it is.
Do you see any questions in chat?
I don't think there were really any specifically about iJedi or general stuff there. You people asking what's going on, but
so I guess we will end this episode for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this reading and discussion of iJedi. I hope some of you guys are reading every couple of weeks. I know, especially for books like this, it is a lot of, it's a time commitment, especially a little bit easier. Where I know a lot of people have some extra time with COVID and whatnot, but like this book takes a while to put down or put away. So thanks everyone who's reading. Thanks to all the emails again. You guys can email us future questions at Tapcaf Transmissions. That's TAPCAF Transmissions at gmail.com. And as I said, next time we are covering Han Solo at Star's End. But before that, we will probably have a discussion of the final season of the Clone Wars, which ends.
So that'll be next Thursday, where we're talking about the final season of the Clone Wars, and hopefully we might not jump immediately into doing like the weekly multi-content discussion kind of thing yet, but we'll definitely have that that Clone Wars discussion coming up, and we'll have the Han Solo adventures after that, and those we'll probably be doing every week. So we'll Justin and I will figure out exactly what the shape of the content's going to be. The other thing I do want to say is that we are going to try to be much better at uploading the podcast audio versions, because we have been horrible at that, both of us. Usually it's ended up being a week delayed, which is entirely our fault, and we will be better. But yeah. So that's it.
All right, guys. Well, that's all from me and all from Corey. We will probably be streaming after this. Over on my channel, over on probably not this channel that we're on now, maybe on Corey's channel or on X2, the channel we all kind of run together. So if you guys want to check that out, feel free. Podcast is available on Spotify, iTunes, and probably other places. Links to that down in the description. But thanks for watching, guys. Corey, anything you want to end off with before we say goodbye?
You said that's all.